It's the WIBC Roundtable. Good to be with you, everybody. Tony Katz. Now you're on Facebook or you're listening to it on air. I don't know where you are at the moment, but I do know that this ends at 7, and then you'll be able to have the full roundtable discussion with more topics over on the WIBC Facebook page, which is facebook.com/WIBC radio, so you can check that out. I am here with Hammer and Nigel. That's them right there. That is Jason Hammer.
Do I look here? Do I look at Rob? Do I look at Mock?
Never look at Rob.
Look at you?
Never look at Rob. It is Hammer. It is Nigel. And the all-new Mock and Rob show, which is more than just a name. It's a lifestyle. It is Mock and it is Rob Kendall. Heard Monday through Friday from 9 to 11. This is the first time in almost a year we've all been in the same room.
Yeah.
Maybe since like the night with WIBC.
I think that was like a year ago.
That is a full year, right? Oh my gosh, that was about this time.
Yeah.
And then we had to cancel the one we were about to do because I don't even know why we canceled.
Roos Chris, right? We were all supposed to get together at Roos Chris at the beginning of March, and it got canceled.
Right. No, Rob was not invited to that.
Well, I'm sorry, Rob wasn't invited.
We were invited to that.
Was I invited?
You were invited to that.
You were invited to that. We're going to go celebrate.
Right. You were invited.
yes.
Got canceled because of COVID, and then like a month later, I marched right up to Bob Richards' office, and I said, hey, just making sure you know we're rescheduling the Roos Chris dinner, right? He's like, that's what you're worried about right now?
Slammed the door in his face.
Yeah. He'll do anything for a side of Brussels sprouts. Election. And so that's our conversation piece. So the first question that I have on the docket, how much different is this than anything you remember for any time in your lives, this 2020 election versus anything you've come up against in your years, a lot of them or a little of them?
For me, it's a matter, and we've talked about this on our show quite a bit, a matter of what the polls say to what your eyes tell you. Like back in 2016, we didn't really know what to expect from Donald Trump voters. Are they going to take him seriously? What's going to happen here? Very few people, and I can name one, Rob, that went out on the ledge and say, the dude's going to win.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect. But here, every poll is telling you, oh, Biden landslide. NBC comes out and says Texas is going to go blue. But yet you see all these Trump rallies, you see the boat parties and the truck parades and all this kind of voter enthusiasm. The polls are over here. My eyes are over here. I have no idea what to do with all that information.
I think you're speaking for a lot of people, right? Do you believe your lying eyes, right? All these numbers say one thing, and then you look out your window, and you've got this. There's a massive level of Trump support, enthusiasm for Trump. There is no enthusiasm for Joe Biden, right? That doesn't.
None.
There's hate for Trump. That's real. But enthusiasm for Joe Biden is a very different subject.
Part of it in 2016, though, was when we would go to these Trump rallies, I would see people who I knew were Democrats, like stone cold Democrats, or people who I knew weren't political at all. They're at these rallies. So to me, it was like if it's happening in Indianapolis, it's probably happening in Pennsylvania. It's happening in Michigan. It's happening in Wisconsin. And without being able to go to these rallies, I don't know, for you guys, it's made it harder for me to judge, is the enthusiasm from the right people still there for Trump?
I don't have an answer for that. And that's where I think the very loud roar of national media gets you into this place of what can you actually believe? Is the anger of a CNN or is the anger of an MSNBC, is that really indicative of where your neighbors are?
It's gotten worse since 2016 in terms of anger. I think the two candidates in 2016 did not like each other, but now it's more than that. The two candidates in 2020 don't like each other, but America doesn't like each other. I feel like it's this added component to where you're on one side and you're on the other side, and it's not just about the candidates anymore not liking each other. I thought it was dramatic in 2016. I thought it was high drama watching Hillary Clinton and the old man, the orange man debate. But now there's a heightened level, a palpable, just like a sensitivity, it's in the air, man, and I think similar in 2016 that the candidates don't like each other, but it's a totally different dynamic now.
Well, I think that there's not only the candidates not liking each other, but Hillary Clinton was wholly unlikable, right? Joe Biden isn't wholly unlikable. That's a different conversation.
No, but Kamala Harris is the.
She
Yeah,
is.
she is.
She is, and you'll notice how little play and talk there is about her in all this, except for this idea of Joe Biden the other day said, "I'm Kamala Harris's running mate." You think I'm kidding, don't you? All right, nobody thinks you're kidding. They think this, but let's bring it down to Indiana for Hoosiers. What is this election about?
Well, can I go back to the first
can
one
do whatever you
really,
want.
really
There are
quickly?
no rules.
Because I think it's easy to just say, like, you do every election. This is the most divisive election. It feels like we're more divisive than ever. But more than that, this time, I think this election, in ways that it never has before, has actually changed people's relationships with each other. Because I hear more and more about people who literally cannot be friends anymore with people that they don't share the same political ideology. Families are breaking up over this. We've gotten calls on our show about how, I may be getting a divorce over this. Mm-hmm. You heard a little bit of that with Obama, a little bit, but not to the extent that it is now. So to me, it's more divisive than it's ever been before. And it's more about distrust of the media than it ever has been before. Like, no one trusts anything, to your guys' point. No one trusts anything that they're hearing. They see stuff, but then they still question, how representative is what I'm seeing?
And
It's
you're
nuts.
seeing it in schools, and you've talked about that quite a bit on your
Yeah.
show. You've got, not even at the college level, where you expect to see liberal professors. We're talking about at the middle school, the high school level. I know my son is a high school student, and he was getting a lecture about white privilege last year. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's happening in Indiana.
One thing, though, you talked about bringing it down to a local level.
Right.
One great thing, as somebody who hates both parties pretty much equally, this election, especially down ballot in Indiana, maybe we'll get into this more in a second, is forcing people to start thinking for themselves. You're seeing tons of Republicans who are leaving the Republican Party to vote for the Libertarian. You're seeing a ton of Joe Biden voters, the polling showing, voting for Eric Holcomb. And if this can mean a major dent in this two-party system that just sucks on all levels and people start thinking for themselves, that's going to be good for all of us.
I don't know how that connects, though, going back up ticket, right? The problem with the Trump-Biden conversation, I want to get into what we think of their campaigns and how they've done, is that it's this idea of America versus not America. Because Joe Biden, I got asked the question, do you still think Joe Biden, the progressives will vote for Joe Biden? Because I've said for forever, I've said it everywhere, progressives will not vote for Joe Biden. They will not vote for a moderate. What do I think now? Well, I think Joe Biden has done such a good job of saying, I'll do anything the progressives tell me to do. I'll do anything they want. I'll bring in Bernie. I'll bring in Ocasio-Cortez. They can run the campaign. Kamala, she's the top of the ticket. Whatever it is you want, just please give me the title and let me ride in the beast just once, right? The presidential limo. I'll do anything. But the election, I think, is about America and not America, if indeed you take a look at those policies that Biden is willing to adhere to. So the idea that Republicans might move to Rainwater on the gubernatorial side and that the Democrats might move to Holcomb on the gubernatorial side still doesn't get into the fact that we're really talking about, you talk about divisiveness, there's a massive split in the very fundamental of what is it we're going to be? Obama was nothing, which is stunning compared to what it is we're talking about now in terms of the dichotomy, the vast spread between what two Americas actually believe in.
But you talk about Americas, the Republicans don't have any answers either. Every time they're not in power, they talk a great game. Oh, we've learned our lesson. If you just give us power again, we'll cut spending, we'll reduce the deficit, we'll streamline government. They have printed more money than Obama did now when you throw in all the trillions of dollars they've just made up this year. People rightfully hate both parties. And if Indiana can become some sort of example for the rest of the country, we as a collective have to start thinking, whether it's independents, whether it's libertarians, whether it's whatever, we have to get away from this two-party system because they both stink.
Then what's going to change? How do you change that at the national level then? I've said for a long time, and I'm kind of half-assed being serious, but not really. It's going to take a celebrity like The Rock or Oprah or somebody running third ticket to become the president before the third party's ever going to get a sniff on a national level.
Well, and they run terrible people most of the time.
And that's
the problem.
the problem. That is the problem. And by the way, we can talk third party, and I have no issue with third party, zero issue with it. Those people will be terrible too. Just so we're perfectly clear, it's how people view politicos. Eventually, everybody's terrible, and eventually, you get into these kind of meat and potato issues of what is it that actually moves us, and that was the question: what is moving Hoosiers in this election?
I think coronavirus and businesses and shutdowns and the loss of freedoms. I think you had people protesting outside the governor's mansion when they just wanted their businesses back and they wanted to be able to operate. And then a few weeks later, the governor Holcomb calls that group of people a petri dish. But then you have a few weeks later when you have riots and these mass protests, not only downtown but all over the country, and all of a sudden it's a different story. And I thought that was a huge turning point for me, anyway. Positive things about, as to treating one group of protesters and saying negative things about one group of protesters and treating another group a different way.
Right.
And I think coronavirus and the business shutdowns are, to me, the number one issue for Hoosiers moving forward.
I find that interesting, considering you take a look at some of that latest polling and how well Holcomb is doing. And Holcomb is a guy who shut it down and is not opposed to possibly doing it again. But is that the subject that's going to move Hoosiers on that national side? Well, I'm going to vote for Trump because he's the least likely to do a shutdown, and Biden most definitely would close everything up and quite literally nail your door shut to your house.
I think that's a little bit of it, and I do think there's an argument to be made for the law and order discussion as well. I don't know what's going to happen in Pennsylvania, but I think these riots that are happening in Philadelphia that took place for a couple nights earlier, I think that's a problem for Joe Biden. If you're Donald Trump and you're running on the law and order ticket, right? You're the law and order guy, and you're saying, listen, when you have Democratic leadership, look what happens in these cities. And you can rattle off all these cities from Indianapolis election to Philadelphia to Portland to Seattle that have Democratic leadership this close to the election. I think that's a big deal. Your inner cities, they're not going to vote for Donald Trump anyway. But if you get everybody else in the state to say, you don't want to become like these guys, because I have a feeling right now in Indiana, the folks in Bedford, the people in Martinsville are saying, I sure as heck don't want to be like Indianapolis, so I'm going to vote a different way. I think that's happening in a lot of key states.
But don't you worry that, because I do, and I'm not trying to be like negative Nancy or anything, but I worry about that only because people could easily say, Trump is president right now, and it's happening right now. So he can talk a great game about law and order, and he can put the blame on Democratic mayors and governors, and I do too. I absolutely do. But just changing a president or just keeping a president doesn't change those offices. And so I do worry that some people are going to be like, obviously Trump has no control over what's going on in our cities and our states, and they're going to use that as a reason to not vote for him.
But if he offers up the National Guard and these folks say no,
but
these
we
mayors
know
and
that's
governors.
happening. Do the LOFOs out there know?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Please.
Well, very little.
By the way, that was LOFO, low information voter. Please do not send emails. And if you do, if you send an email, send it to Daisy at WIBC.com.
Poor Daisy.
Part of it has to be,
We
though,
just pour one out? Is that what we do?
what the end goal is to the right. I've always said from the beginning, and one of the reasons I was for Trump, not because I agreed with him on everything, he's the president America deserves. Because look, Harry Reid was a mobster, right? These guys hide in the shadows on both sides. Todd Young shouldn't be in the U.S. Senate right now. He didn't get the signatures. His donor buddy was the head of the election board. This whole thing is corrupt. The whole thing is corrupt, and people need to see it. And Trump has brought that out. Everybody's on a side now. Everybody shows who they are. Donald Trump has been incredibly successful in showing the American people what their system of governance is. And by that standard, that has been a huge success because now people know, and if you still want to go along with it, you get the government you deserve.
Monk, best thing Trump has done in the campaign and the worst thing he's done in the campaign.
There's nothing like Rally Trump, right? So he rallies a crowd and generates enthusiasm like nobody else. And I think for the most part, he has a America and Believe message. He has a I love America and I am representing everybody out there who loves America and believes in America too. And I think he does that really, really well. And he literally brings out patriotism in the people that listen to him, right? the thing that he doesn't do well is the thing that probably most people complain about and that turn away from, that give people a reason to turn away from him, is when he goes negative. I think he does much, much better when he stays positive about love of country and what he does for the country and reminds everyone of his successes than when it's funny, when he does the whole Sleepy Joe thing, but I still feel like he does a lot better when he's positive.
Nigel, same question.
I think the best thing and the worst thing that's happened to Donald Trump in this campaign, he's a rock star, by the way. The rallies are absolutely phenomenal, and if he wins this election, in part it'll be because he outworked Joe Biden and is in a different city and in a different state multiple times per day. But I think Donald Trump getting coronavirus was something that happened to him, and now he is a walking middle finger to this virus. Literally finger, and proving to people, look, I survived this thing. I'm obese. I am in that demo that didn't necessarily make it out of this thing. Now, what he could do better is stop being so maybe cavalier about it. I like it when he's optimistic, Mock, like you said. I don't like it when he's cavalier about it and sometimes mocking things, and there's different things he could have done differently. I agree with Tony. Stop talking about Obama and the PPP, the PPE. All right. That was something that you talk about. You and I agree with that. Donald Trump blamed Obama because we were kind of the stockpiles were down. This was 3 years ago. It's your job. You should have been on it. But I think proving to the American people that I beat this thing, you can beat this thing. We know how to treat this thing. I cut a bunch of red tape. I sent medical barges to the West Coast and East Coast. I shut down manufacturing facilities to make ventilators. I cut all this red tape, therapies, vaccines, and that's what he needs to highlight in the next couple of days.
Now, the same question to Rob and Hammer, but not Trump, Joe Biden. Best thing and worst thing he has done. Campaign. Hold on. Enjoy the silence.
You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
When has that ever happened in the history of ever?
He woke up and found his pants today, so he's got that going for him, I guess. If you're Joe Biden, you know what this is all about.
You know the thing.
You know the thing. Corn Pop was a bad dude. No, he knows nobody is a fan of him. They hate the orange man. This is a race between Donald Trump's fans and people who hate Donald Trump. There's nobody that sits around and goes, hey, you know that guy that got his wife and sister confused the other day? Hot damn, that's my guy. I'm hitching my wagon to that guy. Boy, the guy that told the story about the hairy legs and kids jumping on my lap, I want 4 to 8 years of that. There's nobody out there like that. So if you're Joe Biden, you just continue beating Donald Trump up on coronavirus. That's your game right now. You were handed a gift because, let's be honest, they were dead in the water before coronavirus. The economy was booming, unemployment, we were at record levels. It was going to be a landslide for the orange man, and here comes the Rona. So you beat him up over that. If that's the bullet you've got in the gun, you continue to fire it. Now, what has he done poorly? Well, I don't think we have time for that. He doesn't know his name. He doesn't know where he's at. He's one gaffe after the other. He's clearly lost a little zip on his fastball, to put it mildly. And yet
he's that guy in Major League that's starting the final game for the Indians. The guy that was in
Harris.
Harris.
He's Harris in the movie Major League, throwing the Vaseline ball up there, and they're trying to drag his carcass across the finish.
The best part is everyone believes a Major League mention would make it into this. 100%.
Certainly did.
You're not out of this, Rob. Best and worst, Joe Biden.
Well, I'm going to do, if you saw last night at the governor's debate, they never actually answer the question. They answer what they want. They look
yes,
for
but I'm the moderator here. We will get to some answers.
The best thing the Democrats have done, and it was purely accidental, was nominate Joe Biden because he's the least offensive. And it's an anti-other guy election, he's the least offensive. And
if it wasn't for Jim Clyburn, man, South Carolina,
he's done. Yeah,
unbelievable.
And one of the things Trump has failed to do, and we've talked about this for didn't vote on your show. Trump's ego doesn't allow him to recognize that a huge group of people didn't vote for him. They voted against Hillary Clinton. Probably 40% of the electorate voted for Trump. A huge portion of the rest of those people, especially in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan, Ohio, hated the Clintons. They didn't want a Clinton in there. And he's failed to govern to those people, to reach out to those people, to meet in the middle. We used to have a producer here who did the Saturday Night on the Circle show, and he's Mr. Moderate guy. And I used to, when I come in and do that show with Ethan, I'd ask him, I say, how you feeling? And he'd say, well, I really like a lot of Trump's policies, and I'm really worried about the left taking over the country. But man, do I hate Twitter, Trump's Twitter. And I'd always say, you're insane. You're going to allow Twitter to potentially, judge how you vote. He goes, yeah, I don't like that he makes fun of women's appearances. I don't like this. I don't like that.
You're referring to when he called a porn star horse
Yes,
face.
that is correct. Yes. And so to me, I realized there's a lot of people like that guy out there. And Trump, I don't think, ever talked to those people, ever won those people over. So the good is they picked the least offensive guy and let Trump's weaknesses play out.
By the way, if you had horseface on your bingo card, and you,
Checked it off.
please check it off now. So look, predictions are not easy, and part of I think what we've all been saying, and one of the weird things I don't know if people know is that while we talk to each other, we never actually talk to each other about shows. I have never had a conversation with anybody in this room about, hey, what are you talking about?
I tell Rob his show sucks all the time. That's not accurate.
We critique shows, sometimes in front of each other,
The award-winning Rob Kemp show.
right?
Right. So many awards.
But so I don't know if you've made predictions or not. But predictions, if you want to make them, I'll start with you, Jason Horatio Hammer, the Hammer and Nigel show, 3 to 7 p.m. On 93 WIBC. Donald Trump, Joe Biden, or Joe Jorgensen, the Libertarian.
Who?
Well, let's eliminate the Libertarian right now.
Wow.
Joe Jorgensen has about as much chance of winning this thing as the Jets do of going to the Super Bowl. So that ain't happening. If I'm breaking this down here, I think the president wins Arizona. I think the president wins Ohio. I think he wins Pennsylvania. I think if he does that, he wins the election. I think after the election, I don't think we're going to know the results of this thing maybe for a couple days after the election. But I think Pennsylvania's where it's at. If he wins Pennsylvania, he wins the whole thing. I think he does.
Yeah, Hammer, I think I agree with you, and I do. We talk about the eyeball test on our show all the time, and the eyeball test tells me, as many people are showing up at these rallies all over the country and these car parades, massive car parades, even in Southern California, where Donald Trump is not even there. I'm seeing footage of miles and miles of Trump flags. We had one the other day. And just by purely the eyeball test, I would say Donald Trump is going to win. And plus, I mean, there's the fact that he is the incumbent. And that is a factor when you look at the history of, who gets reelected.
Roberto?
Something that really concerns me is the behavior of the campaigns in the final 2 weeks. If you look at 2012, everybody thought, oh, Romney's still got all this momentum. People hate Obama. It's going to be a landslide for the Republicans, even after Romney basically folded. The night before the election, Obama went home and shot back. Romney was in Chicago, and people were ripping him, going, this lazy bum, he's going home and shooting baskets. And Romney was in Ohio and a bunch of other places. Obama went home and shot baskets because he knew he'd won. And they said that later. They said, all our polling said, doesn't matter what you do today. The only thing you can do is screw it up for yourself. Go home and shoot baskets. Romney's internal polling, they later admitted, showed, yeah, this is not good. Trump's barnstorming the country asking for votes, and Biden's putting lids on things for days at a time. Now, is that because they don't think Biden can do it? Biden can't get through it? But there's not a lot of surrogates out there doing it either. It's Obama and Kamala, who they know they can trust. I'm still going to believe that America is not ready to surrender itself to radical, extremist, crazy people, so I'm going to say Trump. But at least the optics to me are not good.
But didn't Trump do that in 2016, though? He kind of had that barnstorming tour, and that's kind of how he picked up Michigan and some of these other states.
But so was she. She was still doing it when she could get up and move. She was still doing it too. I mean, she had some serious health issues at the time that did disrupt some campaign events. I'm not trying to be mean or sarcastic about that. The one thing that does give me hope too is the Iron Range area. Is going to be the judge for whether that state flips to Republican or not, and that is a state in an area. It's the wild west of the North.
Now, people understand that Minnesota's liberal areas are the 4th and the 5th. It's Ilhan Omar who represents the 5th district. Everything else about Minnesota is bleeding red. and that Minnesota is considered very often, and it's certainly now it's considered a battleground. The guys from Minnesota will tell you, oh, absolutely, and twice on Sunday. And the hatred for Minneapolis, St. Paul is through the roof. So, yes, the Iron Range is a conversation.
And that Iron Range has always been blue, but it's been progressively going more red. And if the Iron Range voter, there's two types of voters who are going to decide this. That Iron Range voter across the country that has always been blue, many of them went for Trump last time. Do they go Trump again? And where Nigel lives in the 5th, that's a always red area that's gone progressively more blue. How do these two interact? Again, I want to believe we're not ready to turn the country over yet. We'll see.
My prediction is that we won't know until there's like a Supreme Court vote, and I'm going to have a nervous breakdown.
Kendall show, 9 to 11.
Then the rest of us will have a nervous breakdown.
What about you, Tony?
What about me?
We're going to end it with you. Your
Yeah,
prediction.
you got to give us your prediction.
My predictions. First, Eric Holcomb will win re-election. But if Donald Rainwater gets 15% or plus of the vote, the Libertarians have more opportunity in Indiana than any place else in the country. And if the National Party doesn't take advantage of it, then that party deserves to fold. If they don't take advantage of it, they deserve to fold. That's number one. This isn't me joyously screaming about Holcomb's policies, specifically about masks. I'm just saying.
Is that the rise of the Libertarians or the fact that the Indiana Republicans can't seem to pull their head out from their backside?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. In the 5th, I think Hale is going to win, right? That Christina Hale, Victoria Sparks race. It's not that I want it. It's that Victoria Sparks does not run a good race. And anybody who has been giving me information is flabbergasted. It's still the 5th. It's still a Republican stronghold. Things can change. The one thing it is not is a bellwether for the rest of the country. A lot of people nationally are looking at the 5th as one of the 5 races they're looking at to see race is going to go. Just because the 5th may go to Christina Hale, there's so many things particular to that race. Calling it a bellwether, I think, is a mistake. There's no number I have right now that tells me Trump doesn't win. This very concept of if he wins Arizona, if he wins Florida, if he wins Pennsylvania, for example. There are guys at the Trafalgar Group and others that say if Trump just needs to win Pennsylvania or Michigan. Now, I think Pennsylvania is a much easier win, and some polling sends me in that direction. I don't know if I'm right. I felt very confident in 2016 also. I don't feel confident
About
now.
Trump, you mean?
Yeah, absolutely, and on the record. What I don't feel confident about is that I cannot judge hate, right? The people who support Trump, and you're talking about the rallies, talking about the truck rally.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's insane and it's unbelievable. That's pure raw
Those
enthusiasm.
boat parades are unbelievable.
It does not exist for Joe Biden in any way. Anybody who says otherwise is wrong and is lying and not telling the truth. There is no enthusiasm for Joe Biden, but there's massive hate for Donald Trump. And then there's a media apparatchik that could be taking a small people and magnifying them to a point of just blinding you from reality. I cannot tell you right now. Now, I'm wondering if by the time I get to, Tuesday morning, I've got myself a new view, and I'm going to be staring at every piece of data I can. I still say it is Trump. And I may, someone's going to use this video against us. Have no fear. But I think Florida's in the Trump column, and I think Arizona, based on the people I talk to, is in the Trump column as well. I don't think he wins Michigan, and he might very well lose Wisconsin. I do think Pennsylvania's high noon. And we're going to find out.
I'm going to
And
be
we're
drinking a lot.
Yeah, a lot of wine.
I'm going to be drinking heavily. We're going to start tailgating on our show Monday before the election. We may bring a keg in studio. You're more than welcome to tap it, do some keg stands on it. But this is the craziest election I've ever seen. And yes, I'm well aware I said this back in 2016 as well.
Right.
2016 was Star Wars, and I thought, man, there's not going to be a sequel better than that. And lo and behold, Luke gets his hand cut off, and here we are back in 2020. Let's go.
Discussion. So very much thank you. And guys, thank you.
Yeah,
It's good,
thank you.
good to see you. Thank you for joining the roundtable discussion. You go over to the WIBC Facebook page. That's where you go. Facebook.com/WIBC. You'll see the full version. Version.
The full virgin's there?
I saw the full version open up for Duran Duran in 1986. The full version of this is on the Facebook page. And catch up anything you missed. There's a couple more topics exclusive to the Facebook video. Check that out. See you later.